Welcome to another Digital DJ Tips podcast with me, Phil Morse. We are today opening the mailbag with a whole host of questions asked by our wonderful community over in the group. And we have questions about playlist building. We have questions about hearing protection. We have questions about whether 90s hip hop is too old school for today's audiences, and lots of other stuff. I want to get started on it, but first a reminder that this whole podcast is funded exclusively by the wonderful students of Digital DJ Tips. So if you enjoy what you hear and you want to learn to DJ and take part a little bit more closely, head over to digitaldjtips.com and check out the wonderful DJ courses that we sell, not only made by my team and myself, but by wonderful tutors such as DJ Jazzy Jeff, Ferry Corsten, James Hype, Layback Luke, and many more. On with today's show. Our first question is from Ricardo, who says, "Hi all, I'm interested in purchasing earplugs. We need to protect our hearing as DJs, right? But I don't know enough about specs I should be looking at. Decibel levels, what else? I see ads on social media for various brands. Can anyone vouch for any of those ads? Any other brands I should look at? Thank you." We haven't talked about earplugs for quite a while, and they are an important part of keeping your hearing pristine as a DJ. Unfortunately, back in my day, we didn't think twice about the loudest music, and nowadays things are different for the better. So let's talk earplugs. Well, firstly, there is a way to avoid needing them at all, at least for DJing. Now, I take earplugs with me literally when I go out. I've got my noise cancelling earbuds with me, which I can pop in at any time and click noise cancelling on just to take the sting out of loud music. Even when you just go to a live show in the main square here in Gibraltar. My daughter's a drama student, and she's often in the shows they have there for various times of year. She was in the Christmas one. They're very loud. And so I always make sure I've got at least noise cancelling headphones that I can just ear plugs that I can put in and turn the noise cancelling on at least. So I kind of get it. But for DJing, there is a way you can avoid needing them at all. And that is if you learn to DJ with in-ear monitors. In-ear monitors are the professional fitted, well, as the word says, in-ear monitors that are used by, you often see them used by drummers and especially by vocalists, people who need to hear what they're performing. And of course, that's where they overlap with DJing. Because certainly among our tutors, Layback Luke, James Hype are both big fans of this way of DJing. You put them in, you plug them into your mixer, and you use the mixer's controls to either split the audio so one of your ears is hearing the master output and the other one's hearing what you're queuing up, or you just use the knob on the mixer which will switch between the two across both ears. But either way, you leave them in for the whole gig. And so there's two things that happen there. One, because they're acoustically shielding, in other words, they fit your ears tightly, they just reduce the background audio to a level where it's not going to hurt you. But secondly, then you get to control the volume of your set and of preparing your music and so on. So again, you can make sure that it's not too loud. So professionals, certainly some professionals, do swear by in-ear monitors. However, assuming you don't want in-ear monitors, you just want earplugs that are going to help you to either hang around in DJ booths and then when it's your turn to play, DJ, and you want to DJ with your headphones and the normal speakers and all that, then there is a certain type of earplug that you need. Because you can't just use those earbuds that you buy, pack of 20 for $5 or whatever. You can't use those foam plugs because they're just foam plugs. They're just literally designed to try and take your hearing out of the equation and muffle everything. Great if you want to sleep at night, maybe definitely not so good if you want to actually hear your DJ and hear your music. So what you need is something called attenuating earplugs. And attenuating earplugs don't try and stop all sound. They try and turn down equally all frequencies. And some people have even put models out there with a little slider on them, which is kind of like a mechanical part of the whole construction that goes across the whole to make them louder and quieter. It's almost like a volume control. So you can turn the outside world down as much or as little as you feel you need to. I don't recommend those particularly, they're just fiddly, but you can get earplugs that will attenuate or turn down the outside noise. And some of the best ones come with a set of small little plastic inserts that you can swap over. So in other words, if you want to turn down the outside audio a lot, you swap to one that's got basically a smaller hole in it. And if you want to turn it up a bit, you swap to another one, and you can experiment with them and find what works for you. I think they're really good because they're designed to just get in your ears and then let you forget about them. So they just turn everything down, but you can still hear all the frequencies. You can still DJ, you can still use your headphones, one ear on, one ear off. You can still use your monitors and so on. So this is all stuff that you could consider doing if you are serious about keeping your ears protected when you're DJing. But they're called musicians' earplugs sometimes. So if you go and do a search online for musicians' earplugs, you'll very quickly come across the few brands. Etymotic is a big brand that I've used and can recommend. But I tend to turn down the music in the DJ booth personally. So I actually don't really like earplugs, maybe because I haven't used them for my whole career, so now it's a bit late to start. And I don't like IEMs either, though lots of people swear by them. But I'm quite careful about when I'm in a DJ booth, I'm making sure I've got control over how loud it is. I cannot stand being stuck in a DJ booth with a DJ who's got their hands on the volume control of that monitor. I'll just get out of there. So I need to be in control, which obviously normally means I'm DJing. So what I tend to do is turn the volume on the monitor speaker all the way down and off, unless I'm actually using it in a transition. And then I'll turn it up just enough. I turn my headphones up just enough so I can get that nice balance between the two. But always cognizant of not turning the whole lot up too loud, which is, you learn that with experience, I think. I mean, I've been very lucky. I've managed to avoid tinnitus, I would say. You know, if it was a scale of 0 to 100, I've probably got it 5%, and arguably I probably had that all my life, who knows, but I certainly don't have any problems with it, and that's after a whole career of DJing. But I know some people who suffer terribly, so it's definitely worth looking after your hearing. Just look for musicians earplugs. There's a few recommendations coming in. We are live, of course, from the community. So Mixmaster G says in-ear monitors are great, but if you're my age and you spent years mixing with half a cup on one ear, and that means exactly what I was just saying, where you've got your headphones in your hand and you're holding one of the ear cups and you're holding it on your ear and listening to the monitors with the other ear, then they're very hard to get used to. And I agree with you, they are hard to get used to in that respect. Has anyone watched It's All Gone Pete Tong? Says Stephen Wonder. It's definitely worth watching for the DJ life. Yes, it's a comedy film with a serious do not lose your hearing if you can help it storyline there as well. I agree. It is a funny film. I remember enjoying that. We're going to move on to the second question today. Thank you, Ricardo, for the earplugs question. The second question today, I've actually put two questions together because they're about making playlists. So I'm going to read them both out. The first one is from Diego, who says, I'd like to improve and get some tips on methods and thought processes involved in creating a great set. I've searched through the courses, Diego is one of our students, of course, but I haven't found anything related. Any ideas on where I can learn? So the point about this, and it's in the book that we wrote on DJing, Rock the Dance Floor, the point about this is, the reason in our book, while we put it away from the music chapter, there's a whole chapter, we teach DJing in 5 ways for those who aren't familiar with our school. We teach it in gear, which is the first step. Music is the second step. So gear is the geeky stuff. Music is everything to do with collecting, organizing, and preparing your music. Mixing, right? What you do with the music on the gear. Performing, hold that thought, and success, where you go from there. Performing is where we put our stuff about building a set, not in the music chapter. Now you might ask why? Well, the reason is that there's no meaningful way to build a DJ set unless you know who you're performing it to. So hold that thought while we just look at this question again. I'm looking to improve and get some ideas on methods and thought processes involved in creating a great set. If you are playing for an audience, then you need to know who that audience is, and you need to know what they're used to hearing if you're going to play in a club, for instance, or what they're expecting to hear if you've been booked for an event. Now, there's 3 things here. There is what the person who booked you is expecting you to play. There is what the audience is likely to want, and often they're not the same thing. And what you're prepared to do, and hopefully they overlap, and there's a big bit in the middle where the person paying your wages is happy, where the dance floor is happy, and where you're happy. But how do you identify those tunes? Well, there's two mistakes here. Mistake number 1 is thinking you're doing the right thing by saying, oh, I know who's going to turn up. Aren't I clever? I've identified that it's a 21st birthday. They're going to be kids between 18 and 23. And they are, you know, whatever, a couple of other things. So therefore, they're going to be into this, this, and this. And then you plan a whole DJ set, right? You plan everything you're going to play. And maybe you even think, I'm going to keep some bangers for the end, most of them in the middle. And at the beginning, I'm going to slowly warm them up. Well done. You've got the general idea there. But there's two problems with that. Problem number one is that you have planned a DJ set. And planning a DJ set is a very bad thing to do because it doesn't give you any flexibility at all to adapt. But the second mistake you've made there is that you've taken all the fun out of it for yourself. Because part of the fun of DJing is looking at the dance floor and saying, what's really going to make them go now? What's really going to set them off now? And if you've planned everything, you don't have that fun. And arguably, you're taking a big chunk out of the fun of doing this in the first place. So here's what to do instead. You should think very hard about what you think you're most likely to play and put those tunes into your virtual crate, into your virtual playlist. And then you should double that number of tunes. So let's say you're going to be playing for an hour, right? That's probably 20, 25 tunes. So you're going to get those 20, 25 tunes. These are the ones I'm pretty sure I'm going to play. And then you're going to want to get another 20 or 25 based upon what if. So what if they don't like what I'm playing? What's my plan B? What's my plan C? What if a slightly different crowd turn up? What if it's not only these people, but other people as well, like their parents or another group, or, you know, all the what ifs. That's what your kind of plan B, your second half of your crate that you're packing is for. And in the end, you've got about twice the number of tunes that you're going to play. And this will give you enough room to be flexible, enough room to go off at tangents, but not so much music that you get completely stuck in the headlights like a rabbit, right? Serato face, as they call it. Other DJ software is available to get hypnotized by. And so once you've done that, really, the rest of it is down to observation of what's going on in the room, because no one can tell you what to do to get those first people dancing. No one can tell you halfway through the night what to play to get the people who are tired on the dance floor to get the message and leave, and the people who've been looking like they want to dance at the edges to come on and take their place. That's called rotating the dance floor. No one can tell you when to build up to a crescendo and then drop the energy down a bit so people can take a breather and then do it again and again. This wave idea in a DJ set is a good one. But no one can tell you this because every DJ gig is different. So whereas we can teach you as a school about the gear and how to buy and tag music and how to perform the most popular DJ transitions, and then when you've played your first couple of gigs, how to go out and live stream or podcast or buy DJ gear or become a producer, or, you know, all the stuff that people want to do when they've got the bug. We can teach you all that, right? And honestly, any experienced DJ with a lot of time on their hands and any skill in teaching can get you close to that as well. But the thing you're never going to master is the perfect set or the perfect playlist. And that's the thing that keeps you coming back, because music's always changing. We're going to move on and talk about that towards the end of today's show. And so even when you think you've got it nailed, trust me, you haven't. There's something around the corner to trip you up. It's what DJ's all about. So I hope I've given you some ideas there, Diego, but I want to move on to a second question that's related here about building sets that came in from Adam. And Adam said, I played a small house party recently and I wondered, how do you approach preparing your playlists? It was for a 21st, around 30 people. Do you have genre-specific playlists planned for maybe an hour with transitions included, and then move to another planned set and structure the night in that way? In other words, you're playing an hour of this, an hour of that, and every transition is practiced. In the end, says Adam, it all went out the window and I became a jukebox playing all the requests. This went well, but it just meant I struggled to be creative with my transitions. All the graft I'd put into the playlists went to waste. My thoughts are, am I better off practicing how to skip around genres, and what ways are you transitioning to do it? Thanks in advance. Now, this is a great question, Adam, and it touches on so many things. And in fact, you got a couple of really good answers from people. Tomino said, people don't care about your transitions. They want to dance. With events like you described, the song selection should be your focus. Fade in, fade out, echo out, reverb out are completely acceptable ways of moving from one song to the next. And I agree. And Andrew replied to you, and these are all comments from the community, said, I create mini playlists of about 4 tracks per genre or era to make a wide mix on hand. It's a pretty safe bet to aim for music from 15 years before the birthday age, which will be right for the plus 30 guests, and work forward from there. That's a really good idea, and a couple of things I want to pick up on there as well. So look, the first thing is what Tamino said, which is totally true. You should always, in DJing, pick the right tune for the people in front of you right now. Always. The transition comes second. And as Tamino said, look, in our book, we teach 5, and then we added 2 for the second edition of the book, 2 extra ones. We teach 7 now, transitions, which will get you through 95% of your gigs. And there's many DJs that don't even master all of those and have spent a whole career completely happily DJing. So you don't need all these tricks to be a good DJ, but what you do need to do is get super tuned to the right tune to play next for the people in front of you right now. And here's the really good thing about doing it that way around. Once you say that is a non-negotiable, once you say, I'm not going to take the easy way out, I'm not going to play next a song which I know mixes well, instead I'm going to play the right tune for the people in front of you right now. Once that becomes a non-negotiable, then you tend to find ways to mix those tunes. And the way that you do it, the technical skills, they come quicker through necessity. They say necessity is the mother of invention, don't they? In other words, if a problem needs solving badly, you're more likely to find a way of solving it. And trust me, after half a dozen gigs of playing the right tune for the people in front of you right now, in fact, doing exactly what you did, Adam, so don't give yourself a hard time, you will find that your mixing is coming on in leaps and bounds. Practicing whole hours and slotting them together is absolutely not the way to go. However, there is a nuance in what Andrew said. Andrew said, I create mini playlists of about 4 tracks per genre or era to make a wide mix on hand. This has got merit. So if you're a mobile or an event DJ, a corporate DJ, a wedding DJ, generally you can keep a certain crowd on the dance floor for 15 minutes, right? So you've got all generations there, you've got all kinds of people there, you've got people who only know the 5 biggest records from the last 10 years because they're not really music fans, down to people who are going to dance to anything, and everyone in between. You've got probably kids, their parents, you might have 3 or 4 generations of a family. So or 2 families, especially if you're DJing a wedding and the couples are getting married from different cities or different backgrounds or whatever. So look, you've got a really big job on your hands as far as the broadness of the musical tastes in the room, right? So having these mini sets that allows you to rotate between all the types of music that they like between them. You're never going to get everyone happy all the time. The last hour you might, if you do a good job building up to then, because everyone's just had their fill, they've all had a dance and they've all had a few drinks and they're all stood glued to the spot with their arms in the air screaming along to whatever tracks you've chosen to end the night with. Good job, well done. But look, having these little mini sets that last 10 or 15 minutes is a very good way to approach mobile DJing. But even club style DJing, even when you're DJing to an audience who've come for the style of music, who've come to dance, who all arrive at once, who all leave at once, it's a club. Even then, there is merit in having these 2 or 3 pairs of a pair of tunes or 3 tunes that you know you can transition between. In other words, when I play that tune, I'm probably going to play this one as well, right? Those little tunes that they end up just gluing together in your box. In the old days, in the record vinyl days, they'd literally be next to each other in your box because that's where they ended up at the end of your DJ set. Next time you played a set, they were together and you naturally used them together. That way you can have a few transitions that you know work. And I don't think there's anything wrong with playing a couple of tunes that you know work well together in order to show if you're mixing or whatever. But generally you are going for the right track for the people in front of you right now as a rule that shouldn't be broken in DJing for certain. So Harmon on our live chat says, I've been testing buckets of tunes based on emotion and not just BPM and key, although of course they play a role. I got the idea from your tutor, Ferry Corsten. Ferry Corsten is, of course, the tutor behind our Ferry Corsten's trance mixing masterclass that we released recently. And Harmon says, I figured I could create a flow in my track lists based on those factors. Is it normal to get goosebumps when trying new mini sets? You call them buckets, we call them mini sets of tunes. I think that's really lovely, putting tunes together based on emotion. And it's a really good way of doing it. Some DJs certain DJ software let you color tunes. So you can literally give tunes a color. And so when you're looking at them in your collection and when you're sorting them, you can sort the tunes that are a certain color together. And I think that can be good. You can have your dark tunes, your uplifting tunes, and any other mood categories that you've got, your melancholy tunes, your happy tunes and so on, and give them all a colour. And then the good thing there is that the mood that the tunes elicit can be genre agnostic. In other words, you might have a group of tunes that are uplifting and that will give people what you want to give them, but they might not all be the same genre, which gives you a good way of being a multi-genre DJ without being completely random, which you don't want to. There's a difference between being a good open format multi-genre DJ and becoming a jukebox where nothing is coherent. So that's a really good idea. I love that very much. Mixmaster G says, software like Recordbox and DJ support related tracks. So you define two tracks that you know work well together, and then you can link them in the software. So when you find one, the other one's automatically suggested. I agree completely. And Mohammed in the live chat says, are these things different from pre-recorded mini sets? Should I pre-record 2 or 3 songs as mini sets? Well, look, no one's to say you can't do that, Mohammed. If you find it makes your DJing easier, then do it. I'm certainly not here to say don't do it. For me, the fun of DJing is doing something, right? If you press play and you're not doing something for the next 15 minutes, then it's like, to me, that's anti-DJing. But everyone's different. If it works for you and your dance floors are happy, I'm not here to tell you you can't do that. Harman is now talking about the actual mood buckets of tunes, the mood mini sets that Harman has been building, which are, here are your exact mini sets: calm, drive, tension, joy, power, chaos. Oh, I love it. I'd love to see your record crate there. That sounds brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so I hope that helped our students there, Diego and Adam, to get some good ideas about when you should plan and when you should leave it to judgment and keeping an eye on your dance floor and what it is they want. So I've got these questions structured in a way that kind of flowed today. So thank you for asking questions that naturally flowed like a DJ set. Red Eyes says, I would like to upload my mixes to Mixcloud after recording them on my Serato DJ Pro software. What specific requirements are needed, such as recording length, sound quality, photo for cover, etc. before uploading? So Mixcloud is one of the official, if you like, in other words, fully legal places where you can share your DJ mixes online. It's a nice platform where they look nice, they play well, you can get widgets that embed in your DJ website that you can play directly from there without going to the Mixcloud site. They create easy to share social media links and so on. It's a nice place to archive your DJ sets and share them. And Red Eyes wants to start uploading mixes to Mixcloud. And so how should you go about that? Well, Mixcloud is a easy enough service to do this with. And what I would say is, instead of fretting about it and worrying about it, just have a go, because it will guide you through the process. Now, the best way to do it is to have a list of the tracks you used, title and artist, and the time that the transitions take place. Because armed with that information, especially if you have it in a text file from memory, you can actually upload it in that way. It will give your listeners a much better experience because they'll be able to see what track they're listening to and so on. And it also helps. I think Mixcloud actually put buy links in, or they certainly did last time I used it. I've got 50 or 60 mixes on there from lockdown. In lockdown, we ran a special, I call mine balcony beats, where I DJ'd from my home balcony when we weren't allowed to leave home every Sunday. I've got all those mixes on Mixcloud, but it was a while ago now. So Harman, again, thank you, Harman, for this, has jumped in and helped. And Harman uploads to Mixcloud and says most formats actually work quite well. I do recommend that you upload good quality recordings, make sure all your volumes are the same on all the tracks. This is all general mixtape skills. We have a course called, I'm trying to remember the exact name of it. And I honestly can't on the off the cuff. It's got the word mixtape in it anyway. So we've got a course on mixtape making, which you'll see on the Digital DJ Tips website, which goes through exactly what Harman's talking about here. So when you construct a DJ mix, making sure that all the tracks are the same volume, making sure your kick drums are all nicely the same volume, and making sure that the loudest part and the quietest part of your mix are not too far apart, because then it makes it hard to hear when there's background noise. So in other words, if you're listening in a car you're always turning it up and down and that. So we've got a whole course on getting this right. I guess what Red Eyes is asking is past that point, how to get it up onto these sharing services. So I think the important thing is artwork is important. Just as with anything on social media, artwork's important, and you're going to want something square, because the Mixcloud kind of vibe is all about imagine record covers, right? So your mix has a kind of record cover. It's called the mixtape formula. Thank you, the Ruckus. I was thinking mixtape masterclass. No, it's not masterclass. Yes, you're quite right. Thank you. Students helping me out here. My fuddled old mind. So yeah, you're going to need to get some artwork for your mix. You're going to need to preferably have a track list and make sure that it's nice and loud, but not too loud. And you've done a few of the things which you can do, which are Mixtape Formula course will show you how to quickly get it sounding better than a standard DJ mix that someone's just knocked out without knowing any of this stuff. So thank you very much for the question. Actually, a good point to point out that a lot of podcasts, when they play the music, cut to some advert that you don't want to hear. This is a student-funded podcast. So if you're listening to this, if you're enjoying this, then it is 100% brought to you by the wonderful students of the Digital DJ Tips School, many of whom are with me right now, helping out, making this a more interactive experience for everyone as we record it live. Thank you, students, for making this all possible. And if you'd like to learn some of the skills of DJing that we're talking about now, head over to digitaldjtips.com and take a look at the wide range of courses we have on offer, not just from me and my team, but from great names in DJing like DJ Jazzy Jeff, James Hype, Laidback Luke, and many more. Right, the next question we have then, this one is from Stacey, and Stacey has got a technical question, has got a gear question. Stacey says, any suggestions for a good microphone for streaming, please? And the type of spec I should be looking for. Okay, so let's talk about good microphones for DJing, because there's no difference. You're going to plug it into your DJ gear and you're going to talk into it and turn the music down just like you would if you were playing live. And as long as your DJ gear is set up properly, that will go out live on your stream. We do have a course on live streaming as well. If you're interested in learning more about this, I should point that out. However, when it comes to microphones, I can give you everything you need to know right here, right now. Now, you want to go for a type of microphone called a dynamic microphone. Now, you know when you see singers who hold a microphone, they're holding the microphone right in front of their mouth and they're singing. What they're singing into is a dynamic microphone. A dynamic microphone does not require any power sent to it. Now, the other kind of microphone that you see in recording studios and so on, the ones that you see suspended on like these kind of suspension things with lots of elastic holding them like the wire in a radio transmitter, just completely free of as much as possible, you know, suspended in the air. Those big microphones that look like they're built inside scaffolding, they're condenser microphones. And condenser microphones need power. And they also are very, very sensitive to all kinds of sound. They give you a better audio quality, but at the expense of picking up everything. So if someone drops a pin in the next room, maybe not quite that bad, it will appear on that microphone. So obviously in a loud nightclub or when you're DJing, they're the worst thing you want. You do not want that. And it's why you see singers in studios, you know, getting into the vibe, their hands waving in the air, their eyes half closed and their heads waving around. They're not trying to sing right into the microphone, right? They're a foot from the microphone. That's fine with a condenser microphone. But with a DJ microphone, with a dynamic microphone, think of singers on stage, they're holding it, they're pointing it at their mouth and they're holding it right in front of their mouth, aren't they? And the reason for that is that a dynamic microphone is far less sensitive than studio condenser microphones. So it doesn't need power and it's far less sensitive. This is all brilliant for DJ gear because DJ gear is not built to power studio mics, it just isn't. And your voice pushes the diaphragm in the microphone around enough to move some metal next to a little magnet that then sends a tiny signal down that cable into the DJ gear, which then amplifies it and turns it into your voice, which gets fed into the mix. And they're very good at, they're directional, they're very good at cutting out background noise. So you need a dynamic mic. So you said, what kind of microphone? A dynamic mic, that's the first thing. The second thing is, how much should you spend on it? Now, you know the kind of microphone I mean, you know exactly what they look like, right? They look like an ice cream with a scoop of, an ice cream cone with a scoop of ice cream on it, right? That's the kind we're talking about. The Technics turntable microphone. So you think of DJ turntable, you should think of Technics, right? If you think of microphones, you think of the Shure, S-H-U-R-E, the Shure SM58. They have sold millions of them. It is the world's most popular dynamic microphone for a reason. You get it for about 95 UK pounds, $100, whatever. It is a microphone that will last you like a Technics turntable will last you. It will last forever. Now, I happen to know that if you go onto Amazon and you search for Pyle, P-Y-L-E, dynamic microphone, or just Pyle mic and look for a dynamic model, they've got one for about $12, £12, whatever. It's nothing, it's pennies. And that is stupendously good for the money. So my recommendation would be, if you just want something to play around with at home, if you just want something casual, go for one of those. If you want something that will last you a lifetime, spend 6 times, 7 times the amount and go for a Shure SM58. There's lots and lots of others out there. And there, you know, you start spending that $80, $90, you're going to get something that is good enough. As long as you buy a directional condenser microphone, you're good to go. So I hope that helps, Stacey. And thank you for everyone who chipped in on that comment from Stacey there as well, on that question from Stacey. Lots of you chipping in live as well, asking about this, or rather helping with this with your favorite brands. So students, go take a look in the live stream comments if you want to get a few more suggestions. But I'm going to move on now to this, which I absolutely loved. We've actually been talking about this in our school a lot recently. A lot of people have picked up on what we're about to talk about, and it's just come back to us in a different way, in a new way. It's a very important lesson in DJing, and it's one that if you stick with DJing for more than a year or two, you're going to have to learn yourself. So that's next. So Jessica said, at my gig this weekend, someone asked for old school hip hop. So naturally, I went straight to the 90s. Tupac, Biggie, the classics. Then they came back asking for Lil Wayne and Flo Rida, and that's when I realised the 2010s are officially oldies. I aged 10 years before the next song dropped. Ha! So, Oubliette says, oh, as my bones turn to powder, realising old school hip hop for me is Run DMC, Quad City DJs and Rex and Effect. Look, if you ask DJ Jazzy Jeff, the tutor behind 2 of our courses, our DJing and Scratch course with Jazzy Jeff, if you ask Jeff what old school hip hop means to him, Jeff was DJing before hip hop even existed. Jeff was, when hip hop meant taking the middle 8 instrumental section out of existing funk and disco and soul songs and playing it over and over again with 2 copies so that breakdancers could do their thing with your mate emceeing over it, his mate being a teenage Will Smith. When Jeff was DJing hip hop didn't even exist. So if you ask Jeff what old school hip hop meant, he will tell you, I used to have a box of music that I turned into hip hop with the help of an MC and my DJ skills. There is a big lesson here, and that is what we've been talking about in our school over the last few weeks for various reasons. I think what kicked it off was one of our students saw some DJs over on Reddit, in one of the fantastic DJ groups over on Reddit, saying Eurodance, 1990s Eurodance is your new secret weapon. And he was arguing that whereas at wedding gigs and events and corporate events and mobile gigs and 40th and 50th birthdays and that kind of event, right, that kind of gig, he'd realised, as a mobile DJ himself, he had realised that he wasn't getting the same reaction to, you know, Don't Stop Believing by Journey and all that kind of stuff, all those big old anthems that have been working for years, Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi, you know, all those kind of big old rock records. He's like Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond. He was not getting the same reaction anymore. And he said, what I'm getting the reaction to now is things like Rhythm is a Dancer by Snap and What is Love by Hadaway. And these kind, and Eiffel 60, whatever, 68, was it? It wouldn't be Eiffel 67, or else every kid in the whole world would be saying, ha! But, you know, Blue, dabba-dee, dabba-da. He said, these are the tunes that are now getting me the reaction. Eurodance from the 1990s. And the debate then went on from there as to how every generation has its classics. And of course, because every generation has its classics, they're always changing. But what we kind of figured out was it doesn't change smoothly, right? So just because you're playing to a dance floor of 30-year-olds, it doesn't mean that you can go back 12 years and say when they were 18, they are the classics. Because the classics seem to move in chunks, right? It's almost like you've got, you know those old machines they have in penny arcades, right? So think to the penny arcades, right, at the seaside, where they used to have a machine here, certainly here in the UK. I'm sure they're worldwide, where you used to put your pennies in, you used to put your coins in. It was one penny and 2 penny coins here at the top, and there were all these trays, right? So your coin dropped in on the top tray, and the top tray was moving in and out and in and out. And the idea was you dropped it in, and it landed where there were no coins. And when the tray moved in again, hopefully your coin would push some off, and that would go on to the next layer, then the next layer, and in the end, a few would fall out at the bottom, right? You know the machines I mean? And so the way that old music works, the way that the classics work, the way that the nostalgia tunes work, the 90s hip hop, whatever, is that the new audience coming to your gigs are being dropped in at the top, right? And they're pushing people off the bottom. But each of those trays represents the classics that you're going to be playing. It's not a slope. It's more like you have chunks. And it's almost like the number of people who are younger get to a tipping point where suddenly a whole generation of tunes fall off the back. And now you move up to half a decade, another decade or whatever. It's really, really interesting how it works. And DJs who've played a lot of gigs will be nodding along, I'm sure, vigorously now. It doesn't work in a straight line. You can't say, because Sweet Caroline was from whatever year, 1976 or whatever, and the audience is now in 2016, exactly 50 years on from then, you know, next year, 2016, 2026, next year, 2026, 7, whatever, oh, that song will no longer be playable because it's 51 years old. It doesn't work like that. It works in big chunks. So it's really interesting. And so our mobile DJ who was saying, you know, the 90s Eurodance is now a thing. It's suddenly nostalgia. Yes, I think you're right. The 90s are having a huge thing. It was only 5 years ago, maybe a bit longer, that Stranger Things was doing the same thing for the 80s, right? And so, yeah, the way culture moves in big steps between different chunks of old music and nostalgic music is really quite interesting. And so a great story to relate. Thank you so much for sharing that one, Jessica. And John says, coin pusher. That's a perfect analogy, Phil. Yeah, that just came to me then. But I think it is. I think it does work. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Full flow that we were in and all that, because we've run out of time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to everyone who's joined us this year for our whole series of podcasts throughout 2025. We will be back very soon with more questions, more industry inside information, more free tutorials, and all the other things you've come to know and love on the Digital DJ Tips podcast in 2025. Meanwhile, though, from me, Phil, here in the studio, a very heartfelt, get good, get out there, make the moments, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.